All right, so we're going to get started. And first of all, I'm just so thankful to be a part of the day's event here. Thanks to ADAC for inviting me to be a part of it, and to our sponsors, Crabbit and Made Goods. I'm excited to present today about creating a profitable and sustainable business strategy. So thank you guys for joining me and for being a part of this. So what we're going to do, I'm going to run through a slide for, a slideshow, kind of talk about the subject that I'm delivering today for about 30 minutes or so. And then I'm going to have you guys ask questions afterwards. You can leave your questions in the Q&A, and so I'll take those, later on in the conversation. So have your questions ready in case you think of something as I'm presenting, write it down. I tend to forget stuff, so be sure to write it down so we can take your questions afterwards. I don't want to miss anything. So I'm going to get started. Again, thank you guys for being a part of this, and thanks for having me. So creating a profitable and sustainable business strategy is something that's very near and dear to my heart. I've been in business for about 13 years, and throughout this time, there's been some struggles, and of course, eventually figuring out how to make this work for me. And of course, I mentor a lot of designers now, and I hear it all the time. Like, how do I make this profitable? How do I sustain my business, especially on down times when it's slow? And the whole COVID situation, a lot of people were impacted by that. A lot of designers were, and a lot had to pivot and make changes in their business. And one of the big questions I was getting a lot is, how do you sustain and make sure that in downtimes, in lean times, you still have a business that's going strong? So I've used 3 strategies in my business over the years to really grow and sustain and be profitable in business. And so that's what I'm going to share with you today. The first big thing that I've done in my business for seeing it sustain and be profitable is branding and marketing my business. I know it sounds very basic and very cliche. Of course, everybody does that, but branding and marketing goes just beyond, just putting up a website and doing a logo. It goes a little bit deeper than that. It starts with even discovering yourself, understanding who you are in business, your strengths, your weaknesses, who you're going to serve, how you're going to serve them. So it's a really in-depth discussion that you have to have with yourself to really understand what you want to deliver to people and how you want to serve. So again, identifying who you want to serve, telling your brand story. That's so important, to talk about your brand story, what you offer, what you're about, so people can get to know you, get to like you. Intertwine your own personal story in that. I was ashamed of my own personal story for a long time because, there's been a lot of struggles to get to where I'm at today. And so eventually, when I figured out how to present my story and show that it actually did help me and made me who I am today, that I intertwined that a lot into my website, into what I put out on social media, and that's helped me build a sustainable business. Building a community, heart-centered. I use the word heart-centered in my own branding, and that is because it's the truth. And so for me, building a community just goes beyond servicing clients and pumping out projects. It's really caring about their needs and caring about how they live their life and offering value. Of course, you got to give something to people to really get them to see that you care. So that's a part of your whole branding. The next big thing that I do in my business is product sales. I'm a big believer in selling products. And in case you're not familiar with what that is, it's really selling the products that you're already specifying for clients, all the furniture and all the pieces that you're bringing, you're showing clients and making the rooms look beautiful. Why not sell those products as a retailer and make that money as well too, and not leave that money on the table? So that's been the biggest revenue source in my business. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. Investing in developing the whole idea of doing product sales through education, time, money, relationships. So it's a lot about building relationships, build an airtight process around it, understand how to effectively sell it. So we'll talk a little bit more about product sales in just a second. A la carte services is a third thing that I do in my business to see real success, to see real see real profits, is offering a la carte services. What do I mean by that? Well, it's basically taking the whole idea of full service interior design and just breaking it into smaller portions and helping clients who probably are not interested or can't afford to hire you for a full service project. So it's basically meeting your clients where they are in their own pursuit of a beautiful home, Some people like the idea of doing their own shopping and doing some of it themselves. So offer services that will help them. And some people just can't really afford the big thing, but they still want some professional help. So offer some services that will allow them to work with you. So this helps you to be ready for much leaner times. So, when, economy turns or when things go bad and people are not doing the big projects, they may still bring you in for the smaller things or the one-off things or just, the smaller projects. You have to keep those very structured though, and build systems and processes around it. So you're not wasting your time doing it. You do everything at a high level. You don't just like do it cheaply or thinking that it's a cheaper way to work with you. It's really, setting up in a way where somebody is using less of your time and less of your expertise. So they're paying for what you're giving them. So it's not like a cheaper service necessarily. It's really more about less time. So they're paying for less of that. Making it convenient to purchase. So it's almost, you should treat it almost like a product where somebody can just go purchase it. They know what they're getting. And so they're ready to go, and there's no extra time put into that because somebody's just buying a set of deliverables basically from you. Of course, being transparent about what's included and what's not included, and you have to be really good at it because you can waste a lot of time if you're not sure how to do that part of it. Setting boundaries, knowing when to say no. You won't be able to do every single one that comes your way, but maybe plan for how many you want to do in a quarter or a month or something like that. Tracking the success of it, and just to see if breaking out your services like that is even practical for you, or if you prefer just to do the big projects. That's just something that is a personal thing. I think every firm that needs to look at for themselves. Tweak it often to make sure that you're not doing things that are wasting your time. So it's something that needs to be looked at all the time. And then again, always maintaining a high standard when you're doing this, because you don't want to cheapen what you're doing. You really are just trying to bring good design to a wider range of people. All right, so let's get to the next one. So, all right, branding, let's talk a little bit about branding and marketing. Let's get into a little bit more detail about that. So what is that really? Well, it's more about creating clients for life. So you're not just trying to service clients and they're on their way. Clients will come back to you time and time again. And even in slower times, like right now with the whole pandemic situation, I have repeat clients who are just doing more and more business with me. They're refreshing things. They're creating spaces that they always wanted to create. So it's really about having those clients for life. And it all comes from branding and marketing your business in a way that people understand that you are their designer for life. Creating a community and encouraging loyalty. So I've always believed in this. I've always had something that will allow people to sign up to my email list and give me their email, and I'm sending them emails every once in a while. I send out a newsletter. I even created a forum so people can have access to me, and every once in a while I'll pop in there and they'll ask questions and I'll respond to them. Just anything that you think you can do to create a whole community of loyal people. And even if they don't do business with you necessarily, they're just looking for free ideas, they become your biggest advocates. They become your biggest branding people, and they'll tell the whole world about you. You start this with your website. Your website absolutely needs to say exactly what you need clients to know about you and the value that you bring. It's not a brochure. Your website is not this digital brochure that only shows off beautiful photos. Your website has to actually perform like a business partner. It should be selling you, it should be telling what people can expect, and get people to understand what you bring to the table. And by the time somebody goes to your website, they should have a good understanding that you are the designer that they want to work with. Now, explain how to work with your firm. So it's so important to have that kind of, language on your website, like how you work, your processes, and just things like that that will help them to understand. Because keep in mind that most clients, or at least in my practice, a lot of my clients are on my website late at night. I actually have an app on my website that they can see people on my website, and they're usually on there late at night when I'm sleeping, and they're not going to be reaching out to me to ask me specific questions. So my website needs to be able to answer questions that they normally would be asking me directly. Make it convenient to book and pay. I'm a big believer in that. I get pushback on that a lot because that does mean that you have to monitor your calendar and keep that really, make sure you're on top of that, because you don't want people double booking on your calendar. So you always have to be in control of that part of it, but it's a very good idea to make it convenient. And those things are what people make you feel. Your clients will tend to think that you're very approachable because they feel like they have access to you, even though you're still offering services at a high level. Create work that they will aspire to, but they still feel like you're approachable. So that's basically what I just said, is they feel like you're approachable. They can ask you questions on social media, but they see the type of work that you do that they have to aspire to, basically. So it's not like you're the affordable designer. You're still offering luxury work, but now they don't think that you're out of their reach, basically. And you achieve this basically through blogging and your social media posts. I write a lot, and so people feel like they understand a little bit more about me because they're able to read my thoughts, and that's always good for the like no factor. Showcase your work. Self-publish yourself if you have to, which I've done that a lot over the years, and pitch to local and regional magazines, or even the, of course, national magazines as well. But you always have to be putting your work out there. And in fact, I hear that a lot, like, I don't feel like my work is good enough, I don't know. Put it out there anyway, because that will push you even harder to make sure that your work is good enough to attract the clients that you're trying to attract. So always be putting it out there, and then, develop. You just keep growing and developing from there. And of course, strong customer service and genuine care is a big, big part of my branding. I'm always, I use the word serving my clients because it's true what I do. I really feel like my clients, they pay me for a service, and I'm going to give them exactly what they've paid for and more. And so you always have to approach it from a real, the idea of really caring for your clients and really wanting the best for them. And of course, a part of my branding and marketing is just building that loyal community so that I can start offering other products and services that will create other revenue streams for me. So information products and e-commerce, things like that, that will allow people to continue to do business with me, even beyond just hiring me to come into their homes and doing design work. All right, so just to kind of go over a little bit about my stats, about how my branding and marketing works. I've gotten countless publications, all because of the things that I put out there and the awareness that I bring to my brand. So again, I've built my brand to be heart-centered, serving my clients, luxury but still approachable. I feel like when people come to me, they don't feel like I'm far-reaching. And so for me, that's created a very profitable and sustainable business for me, because people are always wanting to work with me. By the time they come to me, they're like, you are the designer I want to work with. They're not interviewing 10 other designers. They're pretty much convinced. And it's usually because of the things that I've said on my website, the things that I put out there on social media. So I've gotten a major project in 2020 from a local TV appearance. So I was like out of the blue invited to be on a TV program. Usually they require you to pay for that, and they invited me for free to do that. And they even came into my office, did a whole video thing on me, and put it out there in the community because of the charity work I do in the community. And so that led to one of my biggest projects this year. I had 4 larger projects since last year where they hired me specifically from website content. These clients specifically said to me, we saw this on your website and it resonated with me, and I liked what you said here. They were quoting back parts of my website. Most people book late at night, as I mentioned before. And so my website is able to, like, I have FAQs, I have my processes, of all those things already built in. People can just go read what they want to find out, and they feel convinced that I'm the designer they want to work with, and they book and they pay for it. It's done. Of course, I call and follow up with them. And that's all a part of that sustaining my business that I've developed for so long, that I've always wanted it to be this way, where it was self-contained. Okay. New projects this quarter from Style Blueprint feature. So I got a feature from Style Blueprint. I had a client who called me. That's where she found me, and she's just like in awe. She went and did her homework, did a lot of research on me. By the time she called me, I mean, she was telling me about me. So that tells you how powerful it is when you put this information out there. Several inquiries on products from magazine features. So I've gotten quite a bit of publication this year, and I'll get emails and messages on Instagram from people who, I saw this product in this room that you got featured. Where can I find it? And so that prompted me to like go back and fix up my e-commerce shop. And so now I have a shop that's actually doing very well because people are buying products that they see in my work on in the e-commerce shop. So that's another revenue stream that's been sustainable for me as well. Much more inquiries from Instagram, lots of paid brand collaborations that have led to speaking engagements. Most who contact me initially have the know, like, trust factor. So it's such a big deal to me that people feel like they understand and know who I am. They read that through my personal story. They read that again through social media stuff, the blogs that I put out, the blog posts that I put out there. And all those have led to extra work for me. And this one is actually from my personal Facebook page. It's one of the biggest out-of-state projects I've ever gotten in my entire career. It's kind of happening right now. We're still in negotiations, but that came from a personal lots of personal posts. This particular lady, she's followed me for a very, very long time. I see her commenting on my things, and then she had a connection with someone, and my name was the first name she mentioned. So it goes to show that it's maybe not a today thing. You're not just building your social media or your branding just for today. It's far reaching. It goes way beyond that, and it has life to it. So think of it as a long game. When you're doing it, just consistently keep doing it, and do it in a natural way. Because for me, just posting on my personal page, it's not marketing necessarily. It's just really sharing my work with my friends, and there's somebody pick that up, and I may have a big opportunity that can come from that. Okay, so the next big thing, again, of course, is product sales. And product sales for me is a big revenue stream. In fact, it's my biggest revenue stream in my business. I hit my biggest numbers ever last year. And of course, a major part of that was selling all the furnishings to my clients. So I treat it as I call myself a retailer as well as a designer, because basically what I do is I'm doing the design work and managing all of that for my clients. And then I'm selling them the products that they would have normally gone out to purchase on their own. So now they're buying that from me. And of course, I structure that just like any retailer would, where the profit margins are built into it. Any kind of risks that I know are going to happen are built into it. All of the relationships and the anything that other retailers would do to sustain that part of their business, I'm doing that, and it's been highly profitable for me. So the first thing, you have to make sure you're doing it right. And a lot of people, I've heard designers talk about how difficult it is, and it is difficult. I mean, you have back orders and damaged goods, and especially these days, it's a little bit harder now with the pandemic, but it's such a profitable thing to do in your business if it's done right. You're already specifying these products for your clients anyway, and so why not build a whole system and structure it in a way where you're going to be the one making the profits instead of sending them to a retailer, and then you have little control over the end results. You get to see your projects to the end. So of course, if you're purchasing these products and you're installing them in your clients' homes, you get to see a finished design, and then you're able to take your photos, and that helps to build your brand. So it's like a big circle, right? Build relationships and establish accounts with the right vendors. So that's a very, very strategic part of product sales that you must do in order to see the best results. You have to understand the vendors that you want to work with. You have to negotiate for the best pricing, build your volume, build that loyalty, connect with your reps, go to markets. Things like that are only going to help you to make it the best it can be. Invest in the line, of course. Sometimes you have to buy sampling. You'll see books behind me right here. That's a part of my investment. Negotiate, and of course, build your volumes, like I said. You have to have your back end properly done. Freight, receiving, white glove delivery are all a part of the things that you need to be focused on, and making sure those are set up correctly to make it highly profitable for yourself. Have a process in place for tracking your purchase orders, because there's nothing worse than not knowing what's going on, and products are not coming in as they should, and things are getting delayed, and your clients are unhappy with you. It has to be done at a high level, and that's how you see the best results and make the most profits and get the best out of it. Calculating your profit margins from the very beginning. So before you even go to a presentation with a client, you must know how much money you're making on this project. You must understand what some of the costs involved are going to be, and understand what your profit margin percentage is. And you set a number. You set something that will bring you the right amount of profit to cover your expenses, to cover the risks that might be involved. So you have to foresee certain things, okay? And on an average, I set mine at 40% profit margin. And we're not talking about markup, we're talking about margins. So have a number and make sure that you understand these numbers ahead of time. And of course, you analyze these numbers at the end of every project as well, to make sure that you made money, or whatever mistakes you made during this project, you don't repeat them later on. So you always have to be analyzing and keeping track of your numbers. And the rewards of doing product sales far outweigh the risks. So I hear people talk a lot about, oh my gosh, it's risky and there's just so much involved. If you do it right, you'll find that the rewards far outweigh any risks, and the money that you're going to make is just so much better than any risks out there. So it's so worth doing, or at least looking into, for your business. All right, and then the third thing, as I mentioned, that I do is a la carte service offerings. So a la carte, again, is just kind of splitting out your offerings into smaller packages, as people say, and offering different types of services that people don't have to invest in a full service if they don't want to. So they should be quick and easy to deliver, so you're not spending all this time doing, I see the mistake a lot of designers make is like they're treating some of these smaller services as they would their full service projects and putting in the same amount of time, and they're not making the same amount of money. It's important to understand that any time that you're taking away from your full service clients, it better be worth it, because you know the full service clients are paying you the bigger fee, so they deserve to have the bulk of your time. So if you're going to do these smaller projects, you have to make sure that they're not it's not unfair to the clients who are paying you more money. Okay, so keep your deliverables very, very simple, and obviously you need to define these deliverables and just make sure that you're not over delivering or under delivering. Clients need to be aware of what they're getting for what they're paying. Make sure your time is always less than the money that you make. Don't cheapen it. You will not be for everyone. Excuse me 1 second. Yes, go ahead. Excuse me. Work goes on back here. All right, so don't cheapen it. You know, you will not be for everyone, and you're not trying to be for everyone. I see some designers, they're trying to offer e-design, for example, and they're trying to compete with some of those online e-design platforms. That's not the point of it. What you're doing is you are trying to meet your clients where they are, the ones who are going to hire you for what you're doing. So, but you have to set those boundaries. You have to set, okay, this is what I'm charging for, this is what you're going to get. So don't try to compete with somebody who's not doing it at a high level. Don't copy or try to compete with anyone. That's basically the next point I was going to make. So make it about you, though. Make it about what you can do and what you want to do and the time you're going to invest in it and the resources that you have available to you. But if you do this right, it can be a very, very profitable part of your business. I would say don't make, unless you're an e-designer and that's the only thing you want to do and you want to just do a virtual with your clients, that's a whole different story. But if you're going to be doing it along with your full projects, you have to then really plan out your time properly and understand, okay, I can only do maybe 1 or 2 a month or however many. You have to figure that out yourself, but you have to set limits and set boundaries when it comes to that. These services are not meant to be cheaper, just less use of your time and expertise. Charge as flat fees with set deliverables. So this is very important, that you figure out how much time you're going to put into it, charge flat fees for that, and then you know for sure that you're not going to go spend more time on this. You're going to just deliver what you need to get this done. And creating templates and repeatable systems to make it fast and efficient. For me, is I can knock out e-designs in like a couple hours because I have my templates already built out, all the processes are in place, it's all repeatable. It's just things that I can just do to get it done quickly, and so therefore I know the amount of time that I'm going to invest in it. And so this is what makes it worthwhile for me, and I'm not spending hours and hours treating it like a full service project. All right, so here are some ideas for a la carte service offerings. I do some of these, I don't do all of these. E-design, as I mentioned, is one big one. And you know, e-design is getting more and more popular, and I see a lot of designers that put it on their websites now, and I see a lot of designers calling it other things. So you want to make it searchable, so they call it, you know, names that clients aren't necessarily looking for. If you're going to do it and you want clients to find it, then you probably want to use keywords. So I still use the word e-design for that. Designer on Call is one that I developed this one a few years ago, and basically Designer on Call is kind of like a doctor on call, where is only as needed. So I have the clients purchase a block of time up front. So they purchase, let's say, 10 hours up front, and then whenever they need any kind of advice or services related to design, it's done against the time that I've billed ahead of time. So the important key here is to collect money ahead of time. Now, I see designers using this for clients who are looking for full service, and they're kind of just dissecting their time, or like splitting out their time into blocks of time. I don't think that's the best use of it. This is, for me, is mostly for clients who already have a pretty good understanding of design. They know what they want. They are willing to do the work. They're doing their own shopping. They're, you know, coordinating their own people, but they just need a designer's eye every once in a while to maybe help them figure out if the paint color is right here, help them maybe select the tiles and all of that for their bathroom. So it's really for clients who already kind of know what they're doing and they just need a second opinion. So that's how I use Designer on Call. So it's not people trying to get me to design on a shorter time frame. To me, that's I'm always going to push clients toward a full service if that's what they're looking for, a designer to do the full thing. Okay, 1 second here. Okay, one-day makeovers. This is something I don't do as many as I used to do in the past, but I've always been a big believer in just kind of helping clients finish it out. Some people, they already have a ton of the furniture and they just don't have the finished, the finishes like the accessories and the throws and the rugs and things like that. So we'll kind of develop some kind of one-day thing where I go in and finish it out for them. Sometimes it requires a little bit of shopping ahead of time to get the extra stuff in place, but we work it out and figure out how much time is going to be involved in that. Consultation only, where you just go out for a couple hours and just help somebody solve a problem and you're done and there's no other obligation there. Window treatments, not as much as in the past, but window treatments were always a big profit center for me. I started my business during the recession, in 2007, right before the recession. And this is how I sustained my business, window treatments, because the profit margins on window treatments is amazing. And I was able to sell a lot of that. It was kind of like my foot in the door in a lot of situations. And so when I go in though, I was always upselling something. And so that would lead to bigger projects. And for me, it was more about caring for the clients and not just, okay, you call me in for your curtains, I'm just going to do your curtains. For me, I wanted to understand how the client wanted the rest of the room to feel and how the draperies were going to fit into the whole finished space. So that led to upselling and getting bigger projects out of it. Information products, so you can do things like ebooks and downloads and tip sheets and things like that. You can actually sell some of these things and clients will purchase it, but you have to start building a following and have people come to your website to make that part really work for you. E-commerce, like I said, I had an e-commerce store in the past and it didn't really do anything. And of course, after I took it down and then after building my social media and doing other things and showing my work and all that, I decided to put it back up, and now it's working a lot differently than it used to. People are now looking at the products in my spaces and now they want them, they're asking about them, so now they're available to them. So e-commerce is something you can develop. It just takes a little bit of work to get it set up right and done, but it can be done and you can get some good sales from that. Staging, I don't offer staging anymore, but I did in the past. I would connect with realtors and help realtors really, help their clients. In fact, flippers and realtors were my market back then. And so I did that for a very long time. I've pulled back on those now because I just don't have as much time anymore to do them. And subscription-based community. As I mentioned before, I actually have a community of consumers and I do have a subscription base where they pay me a yearly fee to be a part of this community, and I offer a little bit more value. Even some blog posts I have on my blog that people have to actually pay to access some of those posts. So this actually came later on after I've built the community. So really you have to start collecting emails and start really nurturing your community and offering them real value to get to the point now where you can then say, all right, time to pay for some of this. And so I'm at the point now where I've launched a subscription-based community for consumers who are looking for a little bit more information than just the free information that I give out. Oops, my slide didn't move. Oops, what's going on? All right, sorry about that. My slide didn't move there. Something froze. Okay, so my why for this business model. Why do I, run my business the way I do? Well, I started my business in the recession, as I mentioned before, and so I have like a really unique outlook on business. I just realized that I don't take much for granted anymore. I still love when clients hire me, because to me it says, oh my gosh, you had a choice. There are millions of designers in this world that you could have hired, and you came to me. So I still approach everything with some level of gratitude that I was chosen for this. I'm going to make the best of it. And so I still have that real heart-centered approach when clients come to me. And so for me, it's just is just who I am. And so that's why it's so important to have that self-discovery from the very beginning. For some people, they only want clients who are bigger budgets than the luxury clients. And that's great for me too. I love my luxury clients, don't get me wrong. But I also love dealing with smaller clients with quick and easy things that I can get done for them. They're happy, I'm happy. And so everybody accomplishes something there. So I truly believe in what I do, bringing design to anyone who desires it. It doesn't mean I bring it to everyone, but I bring it to anyone who really genuinely expresses an interest in working with me. I take the time to educate them on what I do, what I bring to the table, what it's going to cost. And if they're still on board, then I'm going to work with them. I just don't set these boundaries ahead of time and eliminate people before getting to know who they are. I want to get to know my clients before I say, well, maybe we can't work together. So I make it easy for them to kind of come in through my gateway, and then we have those conversations to see if we're actually going to end up working together. It's all about recession proofing my business and creating a profitable and sustainable business. So again, because I started in the recession, I kind of understand lean times. I understand that sometimes there are slowdowns in the business. Now, I try not to run my business with this lack mindset that, oh my gosh, things are going to dry up and I'm never going to have work again. I don't have that knowledge in my head, or at least I don't think that way. Instead, I think that the reality of life sometimes is like there are ups and downs always. And so I need to be in a position that when there are the downs, I'm still able to perform at a high level. And so that's why I set up my business the way I have. Plus, I enjoy doing it that way. For me, it's the best way to work. I enjoy the variety of projects, because if I'm working on huge projects all the time, they can be draining. They take a lot out of me sometimes, and my brain is always going. Sometimes just getting some small victories, like those smaller projects, done fast and get them out the door. Somebody's happy, some fast money came in. For me, that's how I love to work. So it has to be right for you. So it doesn't mean that it's right for everybody, but for me, that's perfect. I'm very good at sales, and I can often get bigger projects. So I invite the smaller projects too, just because I know they can always lead, not always, but in many cases, they lead to much bigger projects. So I'm never going to say, hey, Mr. Client, you want to just hire me for a consultation. That's not good enough. I usually want to hear from them, and then maybe I can talk to them, and before long, they're doing a whole house. That's happened many times in the past. And that's been very profitable and sustainable for me to have that approach to business, where I realize I treat everybody as if they're spending $1 million. That's really typical. That's usually what I say. I get paid to be myself is basically what the bottom line is for me. So this is what I enjoy doing, and I just do what feels right to me every single day. And of course, my multiple revenue streams, I enjoy doing that. I enjoy writing, for example, and finally now I'm monetizing my blog and making money off of the things that I actually enjoy doing. So again, if it's that self-discovery that I had from the very beginning, understanding how I prefer to work, and then eventually figuring out ways to monetize that. All right, so just to talk a little bit about my numbers from 2019, which is last year, my gross revenue was well over $1 million last year. 12% or so of that was revenues from my smaller a la carte projects. So as you can see, I mean, it's a sizable amount when you think about those little projects that you're fitting in between big projects. They're bringing in a good amount of revenue every year for me. And so that's why I do them as well. Again, they help keep me sane, I think, but they're also very profitable for me as well. And so that's why I love breaking out and offering some of those smaller projects. Over 50% of my new clients come from Google My Business. So that's a big part of my marketing, is setting up my Google My Business and making sure that I'm posting to that on a regular basis, because most of my business still comes from there. About 25% of my business is repeat business, but this is back in 2019. Repeat business is great because my clients, not only does it mean, clients, it's built in, it's the easiest way to, you don't have to market to these clients. You've already worked with them, and so they're ready to work with you. Not a whole lot of negotiation has to happen in there. They understand how you work, they're ready to pay you. So that's great. But again, it's just a small portion of my business. I get a lot of referrals, but I close a very low rate of referrals. I can't say really know the reason for that, other than people, they have friends. Once I do the friends' homes, then the other friends, they want their home done, and then the reality hits them that they actually can't afford it. So I'm mentioning this one because I know a lot of designers who base their entire business on referrals. They don't even have websites. I've come across designers who don't really market their business, and they get a lot of referrals, and that works, and that's wonderful. In my case, I just don't feel like they translate very well, because these clients did not not invest the time and energy into researching and understanding who they're hiring. I was just a name to them, and maybe they didn't spend that time, so they weren't as vested, I don't think. So I don't know if that's the reason for it, but I mentioned that just because I don't think necessarily it's a sustainable way to run a business, at least not my business. And of course, the rest of my business comes from social media, especially lately. I'm getting a lot of Instagram clients, and Instagram clients have been a little bit different for me in terms of how I have to respond to these clients. They're a little bit different. They require a little bit more education. They don't necessarily research me as much as the clients coming from Google My Business. So there's a lot more education involved in dealing with social media clients. Okay. All right. So my numbers so far for this year up to Q3, a bit shy of my goal for this year. But keep in mind, there's a pandemic. So of course, there's a lot of work, but, things are closing a little bit slower than they normally but I think I'm doing great so far for this year. A la carte revenue has surpassed what it was at this time last year, though. So I'm getting a lot more of the smaller projects. And so when I compare this period to last year, the same time, my a la carte, services have increased. So that tells me that I'm getting a little bit more of the smaller things. And what that tells me is that in a situation like this, where we have a pandemic, where clients are not necessarily doing the big projects, they are still interested in doing something in their homes. So that's why it's so important to me, at least, to have all these smaller a la carte type services available and ready to go, so that anytime something big like this happens, you still have work coming in. Now, the good thing is that despite the pandemic, we still see that we're getting big projects. A lot of my colleagues have mentioned to me, oh yeah, we're busier than ever. We're getting all these amazing projects, and that's great. And that's we love that. But just think, it could have been worse, and it could have been, where nobody was doing anything but smaller things. So I think it's important to kind of evaluate that and see for yourself if this is something that you want to be able to offer in case times get really slow. I saw when the pandemic first hit, like earlier in March, around that time, a lot of designers were pivoting to offering e-design services. It's something that they never had before. It's something that they never had set up before. And so they didn't necessarily have any, the background for it. They didn't have things set up for it. So for them to start offering it all of a sudden just felt off brand to their clients, I'm thinking. So that's why it's important to maybe do some version of it, whatever works best for you, and always offering that, so you're not just pulling that out of the air at the last minute just because it feels right at that time. So it was just something that I observed, that it's important to kind of plan for these times when there's doubts in the world. You're not really sure what our future is going to be. Okay. And of course, increase in social media leads. I'm seeing a lot of new leads that I'm getting from social media so far this year. So people are spending a lot more time online looking for designers. And so, so that's been working well for me as well so far this year. All right, so how to create your own sustainable strategy for your business? Well, the first thing is identifying your strengths, understanding really who you are, how you prefer to work. Again, identifying who you want to serve. Now, I'm not real big on the whole niching your business. In fact, I rejected that whole idea of niching your business, but it's still a good idea to really sit down and think about the types of clients that you serve best. And when you are writing your website content, for example, your copy for your website, you speak to those people. You speak to the people that you know that you can service the best. And so identifying those strengths and what you bring to the table is so very important. I don't know that a lot of designers that I've talked to that are struggling, sometimes they don't spend that time doing that. And I think it's such an important component as you're building your business to kind of figure that out. Build your brand around that. Invest in a great website, photography, build relationships in the industry. So I cannot emphasize enough about building that website out. Sometimes I get pushback on that. I'll be sitting down with someone and they're struggling with their getting new clients, and I'll ask them, okay, let's talk about your website. And they're like, well, I have my website up and it's fine. But is it what it's supposed to be? Is it speaking to your clients? Do you have great photography? Do you have the right words on there? Those things are so very important, and people don't realize the value that's on that. Of course, gaining confidence is the biggest thing. And I'm telling you that when you have your back end set up properly, you have a good website, you have your processes down pat, you have you're charging for your consultations, you have all those things set up on the back end. You have this amazing confidence that you just show up and you know that you bring something to the table. It's when you're like, I'm not sure if this is working, I'm not sure if this is right. when you don't feel confident, that's when you kind of, it shows up when you go meet with clients and you don't end up closing that. So all of these things are going to lead to more profits when you set up everything properly from the very beginning. And that starts with the website. It's your real estate is what I call it. It's like welcoming somebody into your home. You want them to feel like they're well taken care of, basically. Learn how to read clients and don't take on clients that are wrong for you. So while you're open to anybody working with anyone, at least in my case, I'm open to working with anybody after I've given them that education, of course. But I may not be right for everybody. So some clients may still desire to work with me, but they don't understand that their budget that they want to spend doesn't allow for what they want. And after educating them, they still don't get it. I can't work with a client like that. Like, I'm never going to take $5,000 and give somebody a $50,000 living room. It's just not going to happen. I'm going to have that conversation with them. Either we're going to spend that money for the living room, or we'll talk about a plan where you can save for it, or we'll just do a plan only and you go implement it yourself, or we just can't work together. But that education is a very, very important part of it as you are opening yourself to working with a lot of different clients. Learn how to effectively sell and how to close. That's so important. A lot of us don't see ourselves as salespeople because we're so creative. But I mean, creative people, we have to learn to sell our work. And a big part of what we do is we have to sell ourselves on a regular basis. When you're selling products, when you're selling clients on a budget that they are shocked. I presented a client on Saturday and I could clearly see in their face that they're, I'm not sure we're planning on spending that. So, but you have to be able to get them to understand what they're getting for that budget, how their life is going to change, how things are going to improve for them if they get the space that you have in mind for them. Bring your best to your clients, and you'll see that they're openly going to spend more money with you, and that will be much more profitable for you. Invest in yourself by working with a mentor or a coach. So if you struggle with any of these things, the best thing to do is work with somebody who will kind of help you to overcome some of these things. Invest in your business by attending markets, joining organizations or groups that will uplift you. So I have a Facebook group that I run. I've been running it for 4 years. Such a great resources for young designers who want to understand other designers' issues so they can learn from that, so they don't make that same mistake. And that's why I started my group 4 years ago, because I'm like, okay, I struggled, I made a lot of mistakes. Now it's time to make sure nobody else makes make these same mistakes. So find your people, find your tribe, and learn from them. And then run your business like a CEO. I say this because I don't think a lot of us see ourselves as the CEOs of our businesses. A CEO's job is to make sure that the business is highly profitable and they're reducing expenses. So if we think along those lines, we will think of anything that we need to bring into our businesses to make sure it's profitable and sustainable. And it goes from, okay, how do I create revenue streams for my business? How do I make sure that every product I touch is the most profitable it can be, where it's a win for me and a win for the client? So all those things is like thinking like a CEO means that you're constantly thinking about the health of your business and making sure that it's around for a long time. All right, so how to, and these are just some idea of how to kind of implement some of these strategies yourself in your own business. Nailing your website content. I'm probably going to beat this horse too much, but it's so important. There's no excuses at this point. And I hear all kinds of excuses, you guys. No ifs, ands, or buts. I sound like a mom saying this, but it's true. You cannot expect, because just think of it. You're on social media and you're marketing and you're doing all of the things that you're supposed to do, what people tell you to do. And then your clients, they're going to end up somewhere now to get the information or to take the next step to working with you. So you're on social media driving them to something. What are you driving them to? You're driving them to your website. Now, once they get there, you don't want that disconnect at all. You want them to just feel like, okay, now we're moving very well through this whole process, through this funnel. So your website needs to be able to do that. And that's why I emphasize it to the point that I am. Okay, I get a lot of pushback. I just mentioned that. So like a solid house needs a great foundation, your website is a foundation to a sustainable business. There is no question in my mind. And no one can convince me otherwise, okay? All right, show up on social media. Get so hungry that you will do whatever it takes. So if it means doing some videos, I get a little bit of pushback on that as well. Like, oh no, I can't do videos. If that's what it takes, if you feel like you can best communicate what you do, like you're a kitchen or bath designer and you can show off some of the hard surfaces that you're installing and you can do that through video, why not? Just get comfortable with it. Forget about being shy and afraid to do videos. I said that here, or worried that your work isn't good enough. You get back what you put out there. You put nothing out there, and that's what you're going to get back. So I see a lot of people, they're afraid and they have this fear that they've built up in themselves. And I don't love doing videos either, let me tell you, but I will do that if it means moving my business forward, because video is proven to be one of the biggest things that's going to drive traffic to you, which in turn creates profits and sustains your business. All right. Again, make decisions like a CEO does. The CEO's job is to help the company be as profitable as possible, as I mentioned before. So you're cutting your expenses, you're building your profits. So that comes through revenue streams, that comes through the products that you sell, and that again comes through your branding. They don't run their business out of emotion. So that's another thing, is you can't get too emotional about things. You really have to like be objective as you're making decisions for your business. It can't be like, oh my gosh, it's too hard. I mean, this thing is paying me a lot of money, but it's too hard. Like product sales, I hear that a lot. My gosh, I'm making a lot of money, but it's so hard. Get somebody else to do that. Hire somebody whose job is to take care of that portion of the business then, because it's just too much money to not go after that. Okay. And they make tough decisions about leading their companies all day long. And that's what we have to do as CEOs of our businesses. Invest in your business and it will sustain you. So spend money wisely to make money. So of course, that's education, that's attending events and markets and things like that. That's what you have to do to invest in, and invest in lines and, build your volumes, which the vendors that you work with, investing maybe in your own home, doing some projects to kind of help build your portfolio into things that you want to be able to show the world. I did that, and it's been one of the biggest game changers in my business. People now know what my brand identity is because I invested in creating the spaces in my own home that I wanted to put out into the world. So you are making a strong statement when you invest in your own business. Basically, when you spend money on your business, it goes beyond, okay, I'm just spending money. It's basically telling yourself that this has to succeed. I'm not going to put my money into something that I think I'm going to lose money. So it has to it has to work out. So investment means that you're hoping to get a return from that. And of course, you must believe in yourself in order to be able to make this investment, to know that at some point you're going to see that return coming from that. So you're making a strong statement when you invest in your business. All right, study your numbers. So I know that's a big one, because it's hard for us as creatives to think, oh my gosh, I know my numbers. I just want to, this is what my profit and loss statement says, but it's so important to at least understand before you do a project how much money you're going to be making. So you have to do your calculations up front on the products you're selling, the fees that you're asking for, making sure that you have those numbers, be aware of those numbers. And then you have to do that after every project. Analyze those numbers and make sure that, oh my gosh, I didn't lose money on that product, and because you're going to learn some things that you will have for the next time. So really understanding your numbers and checking your profit and loss reports on a regular basis. I literally have mine on my phone, and I'm in bed at night looking at my P&L statement. That's how much I love my numbers. So that's so important for you to do that. All right, being flexible, so knowing when to pivot, when to change. And I mentioned earlier that when the pandemic first hit and I saw designers were kind of, changing things and starting to offer services, I said it almost like it was a negative thing in certain situations, but it's not a negative thing. It's something that at that point now you're kind of looking at your business and thinking, okay, this is something different I can do. I can start this new service offering, or I can start this new program or something like that. So you should always be looking at your business and being as flexible as possible, make changes when needed, and just being open to working with certain clients, and don't like, it has to be a client that does this and they have to be, don't set those, demographic type things around your clients. Really understand how people think, and treat everybody as a unique person, I think. And so being flexible is a part of that. Be a forever learner. So that's a big one. So like, you're here today, you're sitting down and listening to this presentation. So that tells me that you're a forever learner, which is always going to be good. You never know when you're going to learn that one thing. I remember I went to High Point Market several years ago, and I sat in on a talk, and that's exactly what I needed at that time. I could have heard that talk any other time, and it probably would not have resonated with me. But as I sat down and listening to that talk on that particular day, I needed it that day. And so that helped to turn my business around. So that's if you're continuing to learn and absorb and seeking out information, that will happen for you too. You're going to find that you're going to get that one thing that's going to be like, okay, this is what I needed to make that next step. And so that's why you always have to be immersing yourself in education and learning. Now, I have a course, my pricing for profitability course, that talks a lot about product sales. I get into so much detail, even how to calculate your profitability. So that's something that you can look into to kind of learn how to do that part of it. All right, and take action. So get that mind right. So that's the first thing, is getting your mind. I think attitude is the biggest part of all of what I just said. Nothing happens with the wrong attitude. So you have to get your mind right. You deserve to earn money from doing what you love. I know a lot of people don't think they deserve to make money. I mean, you charge for what you need to charge to make the money you need to, if you're putting in the work. You deserve to thrive. You deserve a profitable and sustainable business. It's possible with consistent action. Build a foundation. Again, work on the back office, work on the website, work on the processes, and build those relationships. And think through your systems and processes. So really detail those out, put them on your website. Discuss those with your clients ahead of time. Let people know how you work, and so people will feel confident that they're going to be well taken care of. And that's what creates wealth in your business. That's what creates high profits in your business. And yeah, so that's it. So you can join my community. I have a community forum that you can join, and I talk a lot about things like this all the time. So I think I may have a few questions, and I'm going to see if I can get to them right now. All right, so I have some in the chat here. All right, guys, bear with me. I'm going to try to get to the questions as fast as I can. All right. All right, I'm going to go to the Q&A first. I'm sorry, I just got off my screen here. Okay, so let's go to the Q&As. Why am I not able to open this? Huh. I can't seem to open the Q&A. I'm not seeing the questions. Well, I'm in the chat right now, so let me go to the chat because I'm not able to open the Q&A. Problem with voice check mic, so I hope that worked. My mic, let's see. How she does so much. How many team members does it take to pull all this off smoothly? Okay, so Don Ricardo, I think, is asking this. I'm trying to go through this. I'm not very familiar with Zoom. Let me tell you guys, I'm so sorry if this is a little slow here, but I think I'm being asked how many team members I have and how do I do this so smoothly? Well, for the most part, I used to work by myself. I'm someone working with me right now, but I've just figured out the best way to work and the best way to manage my calendar and understanding what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. And so once I figure that out, I'm able to like block my time to get things done. I know how to like stack my projects and the things that I have to do in order to make the best use of my time. So I think that came from being a single mom. I was a single mom for a long, long time. Well, I still am. My two kids, and I just had to learn how to do all the things. And so that kind of just carried over into my business. And so, yeah, I have a team member now, but I didn't before. Okay, do you have a retail location or do you sell products online only? So I have a storefront that has a little bit of retail. In fact, I'm getting rid of it because storefront retailing, I call it shopkeeping, is not my strongest suit. I don't love doing it. So I'm getting rid of that part of it. But I do, as you know, as I mentioned, I have the e-commerce, but I do a lot of retail in the projects. That's how I sell products for the most part, is in my projects. But I'm not a big on the shopkeeper part of it. This is wonderful. Thank you, Veronica, for sharing your successful business model. You're truly a blessing. Thank you so much, Shanda. I really appreciate that. Katina, to use a client portal for all clients. Does all client communication portal? I find that my clients don't love portals. I've created many over the years, and they just want my one-on-one attention. They like just regular emails or regular texts. And I'm a big believer in just meeting my clients where they are and working with them however they prefer to work. So I know a lot of, you have to set boundaries. Don't get me. So when I say this, don't get me wrong. You have to set boundaries in your business. But I think once clients respect you and understand what you do for them, then you don't find clients overstepping those boundaries. But I do allow, like I have a client and she's always busy and she can only talk to me like late at night. I let my client message me 9 o'clock at night. It's perfectly fine. Message me 9 o'clock at night. Okay. I know designers like, no, I'm shutting down my phone. Nobody can message me. For me, that's how that works for me. I'm meeting my client where she is in her life. And now if she was abusing that and messaging me all the time, and that will be a different story. So you just have that conversation ahead of time, I think, and you will be fine. But client portals, my clients just don't, they're not into that too much. Okay, do you charge for initial consultation, or do you do your client discovery by phone? So I do a discovery by phone that's free for 30 minutes. So I try to have every client book a discovery call. So that way I'm focused on their particular projects. And, I prefer when they just randomly call me as during the day. And then I go to a consultation at their home, and that I do charge for. So I charge for up to 2 hours, $497. And that time is spent just offering some amazing value, giving them information, running them through my process, just talking through things, talking through the budget, time frame, things like that. So so yes, I do charge for my consultations. All right, and let's see, this is from Krista. How did you know when it was time to hire staff members? So I'm not a big hiring person. That's not my strongest suit. I've tried to hire many times over the years. And right now my employee is actually my daughter, and that's going well. And I had 2 employees, last year at some point, and I don't know, it just didn't quite work out, But anyways, you'll know when it's time to hire when you're getting work in and you can't manage it yourself, or you realize that you're just not good at certain things. Like, I still outsource things. So even though I don't have employees in my office, I have somebody do my bookkeeping. So I don't, I still focus on that, but somebody manages most of it for me. I have people who do my renderings and things like that. So I do outsource a lot of little things. So when you are getting to the point where you're doing it all and you just don't have that many hours in a day to do it all, it's time to hire someone. But just make sure that you have processes already in place. Like, make sure you understand how things are done so you can teach somebody else how to do it. And especially what I'm going to start having my employee here do is start building out a manual. So I'll teach her how to do something, and I kind of already started that with one of the employees I was working with before. I will teach her something and then have her go create the manual and say what she just learned, basically. And then I review it, of course, to make sure. And that way you're building a manual for other employees coming in, and that employee is learning because they're having to create it themselves, and that sticks a little bit more. So I think those are the things you kind of need to look at, is just make sure that you have good systems and processes set up so you can teach somebody else. And then, when you're getting ready to hire. So Veronica Sanders here. Hi. Do you offer training on how to start an e-commerce store with physical products? I don't have a training on that. For me, I've always had e-commerce, and it was just always a trial and error thing. The most important part for me was, like, I just needed to build my community first. So I see a lot of people set up e-commerce and they don't have the traffic. They're not driving traffic to their website. I think you drive the traffic first. And what I'm doing right now that's a little bit different than I've normally done it is I'm now using my own work, because before I was just putting products up on the website and hoping people would show up and buy it. Now I'm showcasing my work on Instagram, and then I make them, I'll drive people back to my website to say, okay, these products are now available in my store. So I'm using my work to inspire them. And while I'm not trying to give away what my clients have paid for, there's some products that I'm comfortable selling. And so I've set up the store to offer those products. And so my shop, if you go into my website, veronicasolomon.com, and you look on my shop page, more than just a shop. I have inspiration. I have, shop this room. So I've made it a little bit more interactive and a little bit more inspirational for people to actually purchase things this time. And now they are, because before they weren't really buying anything. All right. So I hope that answers your question. Leslie, do you coach, mentor designers and help set off some of the processes to run back end? Yes, so I do offer one-on-one mentoring through my website, veronicasolomon.design. And I have a forum, which is a subscription based. It's $97 a month. And it's basically just, you go in, you have access to me. I do webinars, I do videos. There's a whole resource library there that you can go and tap into other information that I've shared over the years. And I have courses. I have 2 courses that one about pricing for profitability, which focuses on product sales, and one that focuses on setting your design fees. But I'm always talking about processes and back end things. So you just have to kind of search some of what I already have out there. Rebecca. Hey, Rebecca. For the one-day makeovers, do you have the client give you a certain amount before you go shopping? Do you sell trade only products or e-commerce? If so, what is the process for that? So for my one-day makeovers, I usually go do a consultation first. And so they pay ahead of time for it. So it's just for my design fees, and it covers my installers fees as well. And then I go out for a consultation, see what they already have and what they're going to need. And then we kind of figure out what the budget should be. So sometimes it means I'm ordering items and I'm shipping them in. So it kind of takes the form of a, you know, we're managing those products, but it has to be like smaller things like artwork and like rugs and things like that. If it's like full furnishings, then that means it's not a one-day makeover, that we're doing a full service project. And then I'll go do a little bit of shopping. So I kind of decide what the budget will be once I go do that consultation. But so they basically what they're purchasing ahead of time though is my time, and so they pay that flat fee, and then we decide what the budget's going to be. Hopefully that answers the question. Do you sell trade only products on your e-commerce? Yeah, so I sell from whatever vendors will do drop shipping. I just sell those products, and the process is just making sure I get clearance from my vendors that they're okay with drop shipping, and then I just add the products to my website. And I just add, I don't go and just like set up my e-commerce in one day. I'm constantly adding new products, like you know, so I don't want it to be big. I'm not trying to be, you know, the next Wayfair or something like that. I'm just trying to sell a few products that is more of a curated collection of things that I would put in somebody's house. So that's the way I keep it much smaller and more curated. All right, Michelle, if you were just starting out today and funds were tight, what one thing is most important to spend on to get up and running quickly? I'm going to say your website. Honestly, I mean, I know I've said this over and over, and I don't think people see the value in that, is setting up a good website and making sure it's optimized and it's on Google My Business. It's listed on Google My Business. That's the first thing. And, you know, I see a lot of people focused on the brand and their logo, and, you know, it needs to have this color and this needs to be. I mean, even my current website, it's not the prettiest website on the planet, but it sure is a performing website because of the content that's on there. So for me, that's where I'd say you should funnel your money. If you can do some Google ads, I'd say do that as well. But in the beginning, I had more time than money, and so I would spend a lot of time writing blog posts and networking and doing things like that. So hopefully that answers your question, Michelle. Virginia, hey Virginia, how are you? On your about page and website, what is your opinion of being personal and writing in first person? So the about, it's a very good question. I have two about me on my website. I have one that's about the firm itself, where I talk a little bit more about the company and the culture, and my whys and my whos and my whats and things like that, and my team. And then I have a my story page where I'm sharing my own story. I mentioned in the presentation earlier that it's so important to intertwine your own personal story, because we don't really realize that our story impacts the way we do business. It actually does. But I mean, don't give the gory details now. I mean, just talk about the things that would inspire somebody. In my case, it was my upbringing. I grew up in Jamaica with not much, and I came to a country that, moved here when I was 24 years old, didn't know much about anything. And here I am running a business, and I didn't even have a background in running a business. That speaks to people. And so I started sharing that part of me. And so you just have to kind of pull from what in your background, what would help you to stand out as a good business person, and share that. All right. So Veronica Sanders, do you have a project fees calculator worksheet for purchase to help figure out your numbers prior to a project? I have my budget worksheet calculator that helps me figure out what I'm going to be charging for each product that I'm selling. So I don't know if that's still available on my website. I took it down. I don't know that I put it back up. So that's for products. And then for the fee itself, it's in my fee proposal, and my fee proposal just helps me break down my fees in phases. So understand how much time I'm putting into each phase of the project, and that helps me to determine the estimated fee up front. So that's the calculator that I use. I don't necessarily use any other calculator. I'm able to kind of figure out the time ahead of time of what I estimate a project is going to take me, just from past experience and my own knowledge of how I work. All right, let's see, Virginia. Thank you, Veronica. This is very helpful. Great presentation. Thank you. So good that you were able to join us, Virginia. Leslie, you're a powerhouse, Veronica. Oh, thank you. Very impressive. And I really got a lot out of your presentation. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Susan, do you outsource your accounting, invoicing? Yes, I did. I think you probably asked this before I said it earlier. So I do outsource my accounting. I do my own invoicing. So my bookkeeper has zero access to any of, she can't write checks, she can't do anything like that. She does have access to my banking information because she has to monitor my bank feed, and then she does all the reconciliation. She makes sure my payroll taxes are paid, she makes sure my sales taxes are paid and things like that. But I still write all my own, I still do all my own invoices, I still do all my own purchase orders, and then she just tracks all that stuff on the back end. And then we have regular conversations about my purchase, my profit and loss statement. Like I said, I'm always reviewing that. If I catch any error, she's the one who kind of goes back and corrects things like that. So she helps me to kind of just keep things running smoothly, but I still do a lot of that myself, just because, you're supposed to know what's going on with your accounting. Which software do you use for drawing and mood boards? Josie, I use for my drawing, I have Chief Architect. I don't use it. That's what I outsource for the most part. But whenever, if I'm doing like a quick project where it's a couple rooms, I just use Icovia, which is a simple, it's actually a consumer drawing software, but I use it. That's what I learned to design with many, many years ago. And I still use that because it's so quick. And for mood boards, I just use PowerPoint for presenting all the items together on a mood board. All right. And let's see. I don't know if we're at the end yet. I think we're at the end. Let me see if I can take a couple more questions real quick. What type of apps do you use for scheduling clients? Do all of your service go through the website, or do you have multiple websites based on business needs? So Simone, to answer your question, I use Wix for my website platform, and there are some really bad rumors about Wix out there in the world, and I'm not sure why, but Wix is one of the most robust platforms there is. Everything, my scheduling, my my online store is through, everything is on Wix. So it's all one unit, so that's why everything flows so smoothly for me. Okay, so yes, I do my own scheduling on my website, and my store and all that goes through my website platform. Michelle, what did you say you charge for your initial consultation? It's $4.97 for the up to 2 hours. Coco, what purchase software do you use? Studios, Webware? I actually don't use any of those for, I just enter my purchase orders in QuickBooks. I have a software that I use called Plutio that I use to track my purchase orders, and I'm actually developing my own software. In fact, it's in beta right now, and I'm going to start using it to kind of, I had that designed and built, and still not 100% where it needs to be, but that's where I'm going to be doing all my own purchasing and tracking and all that. But I was finally able to do that. Dream come true. Yay. Laura, regarding efficient and easy payment processing for clients, would you use Venmo or recommend another payment app platform for clients to feel secure in paying you? I found taking credit cards was laborious and expensive. So I take credit cards through, I don't use Venmo or anything like that because they don't seem professional to me, honestly. I send all my invoices through I use Zoho Books for my accounting. I used to use QuickBooks. I just, moved away from that to Zoho just this year, actually. And everything goes through Stripe. So I can send my invoices, and my clients can choose whether they want to pay through their bank account, an ACH, which that's a really small charge of like $1 or something like that. But if they do a credit card, it's like 3%. And I just kind of either build that into the cost, or it's just a cost that I absorb depending on who the client is or what the project is. So I just don't use Venmo or anything like that. It's always an invoice that I'm sending, and everything runs through my accounting system. Coco, what does that data entry? I think you have a question, you probably didn't finish typing that question. Can you share contact info for questions after? I think well, I don't know if you wanted me to share something else, but I'm going to take as many questions. Can you let me know at what point I need to cut off, just so I'm not holding anybody back today? Okay, Krista, what project management tools do you use? Mydoma, Honeybook. So I don't use any of those. Like I said, I'm developing my own, but for right now, for managing my purchase orders, which is a big part of what I needed to manage, because I do so much volume with purchasing products. I had to get something to streamline that. And I use it's simple. It's called Plutio. It's basically a task management system that I use to manage all my purchase orders. Eventually, all that's going to be moving to the software that I've developed. And this is from Lindsay, do you give a quick quote for your time on the project at the consultation? If people ask, I will say I think it will take this long, but I rather go sit down and figure it out, just because I want to give them actual numbers and good numbers. And so I take the time to go develop that later on. Judy, hey Judy, your work is amazing. Thank you. You're welcome, Judy. Thank you for being a part of this. And let's see. How do you build your product library? You're talking about vendor lists. As far as product library, I just have vendors that I work with, and it's over the years I've chosen vendors that I get the best pricing with. Their products match the type of look that I go for, and then I work with as many. Well, I keep my vendor pool very small, so I'm giving more of them, less of them, more volume basically. So I try to build loyalty with my vendors as much as possible, and so that's who I go to source products. So that I keep that very small. All right, so are we okay to stop at 3:25? Yeah, so I think we are just about there. Veronica, please repeat and spell the software you mentioned that is a consumer one. It's Icovia, I-C-O-V-I-A, Icovia. All right. And all right, so I think we're at the end of the questions, you guys. If you need to get into contact with me or reach out, you can, my website for mentoring stuff and all my courses and things like that can be found at veronicasolomon.design. So that's the best way to reach me on that. But if you're trying to kind of check out what I do for my consumers, that's veronicasolomon.com. That's my consumer website. So looks like there are no other questions. Thank you guys so much for joining me and for spending the time with me this afternoon. I really appreciate that. Feel free to send me an email or anything if you have any other questions that you can think of. And if you're in my group, feel free to ask there as well too. And my group, if you don't know that, it's called What They Don't Teach You in Design School. So thank you very much, guys. Enjoy your day, the rest of it anyways. Bye-bye.